Welcome to K Drama School. I'm your host, Grace Jung, and class is now in session. The show I'm going to talk about today is called Our Beloved Summer. It is a K drama written by Yi Na-eun, who made her writer debut with a webtoon entitled The Omniscient Point of View of an Unrequited Love. So I guess she's sort of into that whole teen drama, perhaps school drama kind of vibe. I think that's her wheelhouse. I haven't seen a romantic comedy K drama series in a while, so uh, this was a very welcome show for me. I think the last show that I wanted to see that happened to be a romantic comedy was Hometown Cha Cha Cha, and that was a little while ago. So I was very happy to see this one because it actually piqued my interest. We all know Kim Dami because we've seen her in Itaewon Class. I'm impressed by Kim Dami's acting career because she's very young and she's already done quite a few films and TV shows that have a lot of success. And her roles have also been at times quite daring. For instance, the films that she's in, they're all like thrillers or horror, and I think they're very physically and emotionally taxing. So that's impressive to see. She definitely has range. She also has a very youthful look to her. I've been rewatching some Korean dramas from like 20 years ago, and watching Chiju back then is alarming because even though she's in her early to mid 20s on those shows, she still looks pretty old. Yeah. But to her credit, Chiju's maintained her look over the last 2 decades, and she hasn't changed very much. So there's that. Ushik is the actor who portrays Ung on this show. And Che has a very long career with multiple films and TV shows under his belt, spanning over 10 years now. And he made his debut back in 2011. But he's been in very well known Korean films that caught both Europe and Hollywood's attention, like Train to Busan and, of course, Parasite. Che is Korean, but he lived in Vancouver for a bulk of his life, so he's also very fluent in English. I also recall seeing Che in that Chang Hyuk slash Changnara reunion TV show, Fated to Love You, and he had this comedic supporting role on that show, and he was quite good. So Che also has range as an actor, and it was interesting to see him in the lead role in a rom com. I just don't see an actor like him playing a lead in a rom com. It's also very different because I mean, Choi-shik's been playing a lot of supporting characters in TV shows and films up until now. I guess it took a Palme d'Or and an Oscar-winning film for him to get the lead in a romantic comedy, which, from what I hear, a lot of male actors' dream is to do a romantic comedy, like at least once in their lives. And that's understandable. Actors with looks like Choi don't normally get cast in lead roles in rom-coms. I would say that this kind of casting is an anomaly because he doesn't have the conventional look of a hot hunk. But given the quirkiness of Choong's character as an artist and his overall laxness that harbors anxiety over abandonment as an adoptee, I thought Choi was the perfect actor for this role. We've all seen how fastidious Kim Dami was as Choi in Itaewon Class, so it was no surprise for me to see her in a similar role on this show, where she's somewhat tightly wound and very goal oriented and focused. I personally did not think that Kim Dami and Choi Woo-shik had chemistry as a couple on this show, but they definitely have an excellent platonic chemistry. Like when they play the sort of roughhousing high school kids who, you know, tease each other, hate each other, nag each other. I felt like they were a lot more fitting in that role. But whenever there were romantic scenes between them, it felt extremely awkward, and I had to fast forward pretty much all of it. Yeah, I fast forwarded a lot of this show when they got a little too, I don't know, ooey gooey. In Our Beloved Summer, what stood out to me was Cheung's parents. Normally in K-dramas, there's a common theme of the dysfunctional family, and it's largely attributed to the incompetent parents and trauma stemming from that, which leads to the character's development. But Cheung's parents are so loving and so supportive, right? Of course, we later learn that they had suffered the loss of their first child, and Ungi was adopted as their second son. But seeing well adjusted parents being that supportive of their child, that's somewhat alienating for me to witness. All right. Like parents are often framed in very flawed ways in Korean dramas, and that's more of what I'm used to seeing. So to see this show, I don't know, what it tells me is that there's a generational shift taking place in Korea, and Gen X parents are less toxic than the baby boomer parents. And as a result, the kind of damage that gets inflicted on the child being of a late millennial or early Gen Zer, is very different as well. So in the case with Ungi, the damage is feeling unmotivated. Like that's his bag, okay? Like that's a huge difference. That's a drastic difference from characters who had parents who were alcoholics or wife beaters or child beaters or thugs and prostitutes. Okay, like that's more of what I'm used to seeing. In my own academic work, I argue that Korean dramas in the last decade have been exhibiting first world problems, which is quite tangential to the developing nation issues that South Korea dealt with not too long ago in its history, which were reflected in many Korean dramas from the 1990s and from the early millennium. A lot of it has to do with hunger. For instance, poverty, dislocation, dispossession. Okay, these kinds of issues that plagued Korean TV dramas from those eras, those were echoes of issues that were dealt with during the Korean War and in the early post Korean War years. After recovering from the IMF recession in Korea and shortly after the 2008 and 2009 economic recession, Korean television made very active steps to focus on first world problems like getting by in a white collar setting or facial and bodily appearances being the main issue, like you've seen in shows like She Was Pretty, which stars Kim Hye-jin and Park Seo-joon, or Oh My Venus starring Seo Ji-sup and Shin Min-a. Okay, these are very different shows from something like Piano, which came out in 2001, and it's about mixed families dealing with poverty and shame and death. Okay, so very, very different stuff. Today's guest is Mike Rose. He's an LA based comedian who was originally trained as a dancer, and he's a good hiking buddy of mine. And I want to set you up for this podcast talk, which is going to be full of spoilers on a Sean Baker film called Red Rocket. It came out last year and it is still in theaters. We talk a lot about the movie. In fact, the whole episode is basically about Red Rocket. So if you plan on seeing the film, I would say save the rest of this episode for after you see the movie, which I highly recommend because it is an amazing movie. And for those of you who don't know Sean Baker, he's the filmmaker who made Florida Project and Tangerine. He also made amazing films like Takeout and Starlet. If you haven't seen his movies, I say get into them. They're worth seeing. I think Sean Baker is one of America's most original contemporary filmmakers that we have, and we're lucky to catch his movies in the theaters. So I would say go and do it. If you want to hear the flashcard series on this podcast, on Our Beloved Summer, Mike and I do have that discussion. So you could skip to the last 10 minutes of this episode if you'd like. But do check out Red Rocket and do listen to the rest of this podcast episode because I think the two of us have a really meaningful textual analysis of Red Rocket as a movie. So, without further ado, let's talk to Mike Rose. Have you ever read Louise Hay's books?
No, what are those?
She does like metaphysics. She's into metaphysics.
I haven't.
No, Louise Hay, she wrote this book. She wrote several books, but she's like one of those like healer type women, like she was a model and then she got a divorce and then she had cancer and then she moved to Los Angeles and got into the whole like hippie groove shit, right? And she's into metaphysics and she said that migraines are caused by perfectionism. Yeah. Yeah.
And I got my first migraine in the pandemic.
Really?
Hmm.
Were you putting yourself under a lot of pressure during the pandemic?
Oh gosh, there was so much.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and then like my mom passing,
Right.
and it was like I wasn't going to Pilates because that wasn't happening. So like all my exercise was like hiking,
Oh, that's
which
right.
was just lots of tightening and I remember it coming on like I just felt like this thing in the back of my head, like as if like an egg had been cracked inside, like,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden it just went, and I had this terrible.
Yeah.
I was texting people like, "What are migraines? What do they feel like?" Because I've never had one,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Oh my god, this is awful."
It's awful.
And then I went grocery shopping. I put the bags down and just like
Yeah.
came and like laid in my bed for a second to like
Yeah.
decompress.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I can't put away the groceries. I'm just gonna stay
Mm.
here for the rest of the night.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
dogs aren't gonna go out.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then that led to a whole body. Went to my back, my lower back. I could like barely walk. It's
That's
crazy.
insane. Yeah. No, it's fucked up. Migraines are like it's immobilizing. When I get them, they're immobilizing. And you know what she said the solution to migraines are? This is her
What?
suggestion. She said masturbate.
What's funny is I had masturbated, and then I felt like that's what. If anything, I was blaming my masturbation for this migraine, like I was
She
tensing my body or something.
no, she said it's like a form of release, tension release. So masturbation offers tension release. And so it's like one aspect of it. But I guess, you could find tension release through crying. I mean, we talked about that when we were hiking. Like crying is definitely a good reset into for the equilibrium. Laughing is also the same as crying if it's like a real laughter. I did a show yesterday and I I love the sight of those few people where it's not like a big laugh, but it's like a warm, tepid response in terms of the sound. But you see like several people in the audience who are like doubled over, like silently guffawing, like trying to catch their breath. Like that to me is more worth it than an actual like big ass laugh. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, oh, those
Yeah,
speckled few who are really having a moment, and that's tension release, like because you're holding your whole body in like this, but you're still breathing, trying to breathe, and then it's like you relax and you start breathing again, and it's this tension reset, like you release it. So anyway, yeah, she said masturbation helps with migraines, and I'm like, usually when I have a migraine, the last thing I want to do is jerk off.
well, that's your assignment.
Put it in my
If
books.
you want to bookend that masturbation with me, if that is helpful, I'm here for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's talk about Red Rocket a bit. I mean, we saw this film a few weeks ago over at the Grove. Very interesting place.
Highly anticipated. Yes, at the Grove at the height of Christmas.
At the height of Christmas, and we got to see Santa waving. We got to see the fake snow, the bubbles, right?
Yeah,
That was
Santa
sweet.
was on the trolley
Yeah.
far away. No one could sit on his lap this year,
No, no. I mean, yeah, it was kind of like a safe, respectful distance between Santa and us.
which is good because usually there's that like giant gingerbread house in the middle,
Uh-huh.
and like parents are lined up with their
Right.
children dressed in outfits, and
At the
like
mall, yeah.
it's the lines blocking everything. A lot of weird energy.
Weird energy. It's a showstopper. It's actually kind of bizarre. Like what a job to have, like to be that Santa and have like all these kids, strangers' kids, sit on your lap.
Sit on your lap over and over. Tell me what you want.
And it's not like you're gonna fulfill that for them. You're just listening.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're
Yeah, I'd be
pretending.
like,
You're an imposter. Yeah.
kid, I can't do this for you. I wouldn't be able to do it.
It's such a strange ritual. Like, and it's like, do the parents have to be within earshot so that they can hear? Is that like how the parents fulfill the kids' dreams? What if like the parents do hear it, but they don't follow up with it because it's like they can't because of fiscal limitations or whatever. And then it's like the kid opens their gift on Christmas morning, like this is what I asked for. And then what do the parents have to say to that?
Yeah, because I was a kid who was like, this isn't what I asked for. One time I asked for rollerblades, and even in my list I put like trademark. I like made the TM circle. I want rollerblades. I do not want the Veriflex ones from Target. I
Yeah.
want rollerblades.
Uh-huh.
But I think that was like, as a kid, I was taking part in Christmas, which is where you ask for what you want,
Right.
and then like capitalism. Like now,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be like, whatever, don't get me that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me anything. Let's go to
Mm-hmm.
lunch.
Right.
And then whenever that's portrayed on television, like this kid on Santa's lap, it's always full of tension.
Yeah.
And the parents are like, tell him you want this thing. Remember to tell him you want this, because the parents already bought that thing.
Oh, right. Okay, there's that too. The sort of
This
gaslighting,
whole
the
gaslighting, this charade.
the shepherding them into asking for the thing that the parents already got, but not what's in the kid's heart. I guess
Hmm.
there are those overbearing kinds of parents too, I suppose. That's interesting. Yeah, it's a fucked up world, huh? And then there's Santa, the fake imposter Santa, witnessing it all.
Well, what did I hear? I heard that Santa's origins, have nothing to do with Christianity.
No, it's a pagan
It,
thing.
yeah, and it was something about like going out to get things, and by the time you came back, the snow had there had been so much snowfall that like it was so high that they had to enter through the chimney,
Uh-huh. Interesting.
and
Interesting.
that they decorated trees with like berries or things like that, and that's how the Christmas tree and
Uh-huh.
ornament thing came about,
Yeah,
which is so much more interesting than
it is.
the
It is.
Christian sort of
It's
story.
also it's also linked to mushrooms. You know the Amanita mushroom?
No, tell me.
It's the red one with the white spots
Oh,
that
yes, yes,
the
yes.
classic quintessential mushroom. So the Amanita mushrooms people say are poisonous, but they're actually not. They're not psilocybin either, so they're not like psychedelic mushrooms, but they do have two kinds of acid compounds that cause hallucinations. So it was kind of like elk and reindeer, they like to eat those mushrooms apparently. um and when people eat them, like in Russia, like when they eat them or they boil it and then drink the fluid from the mushroom, they become like severely intoxicated and start hallucinating, and then they'll start riding the reindeer. And it's like that's also linked to the whole like mythology around Christmas. The red and white colors of the Amanita mushrooms is like what makes that Santa's outfit. Um, so yeah, it's like also the mushrooms are also tied to that whole pagan
That's way
ritual.
more interesting.
Then this whole Jesus and the baby thing, right?
Yeah.
But they are it's all like mythology that comes together, like it's not. I don't see them as like separated really. They're, today in present day, our concept of Christmas is like all of those things intertwined in a
Hmm.
way. And we determine Christmas for ourselves, right? Like we're the child asking for whatever we want, and then we go and fucking get it for ourselves. The rollerblades that you wanted, you know?
Yeah.
So we went to the Grove, we saw Red Rocket. You had asked me if I wanted to see Red Rocket, and it was a very welcome invitation because I am a huge Sean Baker fan, and I knew nothing about this film. I didn't know a single thing about it. How did you come to learn about this movie?
I follow Sean on
Okay,
Instagram,
there you
and I
go.
think after Florida Project, I had reached
Yeah.
out to him on Instagram,
Yeah.
and he responded back like like he wasn't
Oh,
this great
yeah.
filmmaker.
Oh no, yeah.
Yeah, and because I had mentioned how similar Florida Project was to my experience with some of my family who lived like on the outskirts of Anaheim. And what did you meant? You said this great term, edge of industry. That was such a
Mm,
great term.
mm, mhm.
And I saw similar stories, similar perspectives. So I thought that was so interesting.
Yeah.
And then I just been at that point with Tangerine and the Florida Project. It was just like, okay, well, I'm going to see everything this guy
Yeah.
makes.
Yeah.
I'm so interested in it.
Mhm.
In Red Rocket, I knew Simon Rex was a part of it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, I knew he was playing, I don't know, a failed porn star or a
Uh-huh.
washed up porn star.
Right. And you knew quite much about Simon Rex's celebrity
Well,
history.
yeah, because I connected that to this, I guess, this jack off video that had been circulating. I don't even know
Yeah.
how it was circulating back then because what was on the internet? How was the internet working then? Because this was probably in 95 or 96 that this video got made. And so to me, it was this instant, like, built in, like, oh, this vindication, this redemption for Simon Rex, who, like, back then you couldn't have a jack off video, and now it's like that's a career starter. Or then it was
Yeah.
a career ender.
Yeah. If I get Paris Hilton, Kim Kardashian, hello.
No
Right?
kidding.
Yeah. And it's like, actually, if you think about it, maybe it's a stigma too. Like for a straight woman to go and put that out there, maybe it becomes like, okay, she's going to go and monetize off of this. But he's a straight man.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like perhaps even the fact that a lot of gay men watch this video, maybe
Yes.
it's catered to the gay male gaze. And maybe that is also what hurt his career because of the gay association, perhaps,
Yeah,
right?
his content was not for straight white men.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. Um,
And he has a huge penis, so I'm sure that was like
it's gorgeous.
the insecurity of men.
He has an amazing cock,
Yeah,
and
it's beautiful.
and you also made this great sort of connection when you were like, I mean, he was able to play this role so well because he has that experience of having been this teen movie star and
Mm-hmm.
having this burgeoning budding career, and then it just kind of came to a standstill because of this sex video scandal. And like even when I saw him on the big screen, I was like, he has that look, very familiar. I know this look. It's from my past when I was a teen, and yet I can't place, where I've seen him in last. Like I couldn't.
Well, in quintessential '90s guy, where those guys, like, I don't know, like Seth Green, Matthew Lillard,
Yeah.
like kind of
Yeah.
like alternative geeky,
Robot
not
chickeny.
yeah, not muscles and like,
Mm.
but this sort of like Simon Rex was on the cover of Details, I believe. So like
Huh.
Details magazine, that
Yeah.
that era.
Yeah.
Um, it's so funny that he was an MTV VJ and
Oh
like
my god. That's so funny. I love that.
yeah. Did you know? Yeah, someone he was
I did
dating, I
not
think
know that.
was
And it
someone he
wasn't it
was
wasn't
dating.
it wasn't Tara Reid, I assume.
I'm not. I forget
She
this story,
dated
but
so many VJs.
yeah, that's that's a that's a course you can take.
Yeah.
VJ your way to the top. Um, but I guess someone he was dating was going to MTV for some kind of job.
Mm,
Um, and while he was there, they were like, "Hey, who are you?
yeah.
Do you want to be a VJ?" And he became a VJ. And then I saw some clip where he was stoned and like, we need you to interview Snoop Dogg, and like, I think it was Snoop Dogg, someone
Mm.
else who would it would make sense they were stoned too. So like, there's this like video, this interview of them, both of them stoned. It's great.
Yeah. He's he's such an interesting person because I guess even like being approached to become a VJ, it's like really for the look, right? Like a lot of those teen movies and MTV in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was always about the look. If you
For
had the
sure.
look, it didn't matter who the fuck you were or how talented you were, what your background was, what training you had, didn't matter. You were gonna be on TV. And he had that look, but when I was watching this film, I was so I mean, I think we were both impressed by his acting chops. Like
He's great.
he really brought it.
So funny.
Hilarious and vulnerable.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And playing many layers
Yeah.
and
Let's name one
capturing
layer. Let's name one layer that he was playing. Like, we'll start with one. There's so many layers to this onion.
his outward um, charisma to get by and get through the door. There was that
And
aspect.
it's linked to his self-image and the image that he projects outwardly because you said this because you're a dancer and you were like just see how when he was at the donut shop he was just like, oh, I'll just have half a donut, right? Because he was
Hmm.
co- conscious about
Yes, there
his
were.
body.
I forget what the other moment was. There were two moments where I was like, "Oh, it's sort of lightly touches upon perhaps an eating disorder, his
Yeah.
body, his
Yeah.
keeping himself in shape, being doing
Uh-huh.
porn." I
Uh-huh.
love how it was so lightly referenced because
Yeah.
his character was as a victim of so many societal woes, um,
100%. Yeah.
and he himself was who's talking about male body image issues and
Uh-huh.
eating disorders. Like that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. And it's usually like eating disorders are typically tied to like young teenage girls or young women. And he has this relationship with this young woman, a teenager, and she's working at a donut shop. And it's like, oh, they're kind of the same, in a lot of ways. Like, on the one hand, he has like the life experience and the sort of washed upness and the drama and the scars and the trauma and the bad morals, so to speak, in him, right? And yet he also has this like childlikeness to him, a childlike vulnerability to himself. And I feel like that perhaps was connecting with this young woman, the girl at the donut shop in some ways. Like perhaps that was sort of the relating, you know?
Yeah, young and beautiful,
Mm,
their sex appeal,
mm-hmm.
and that character perhaps never evolved out of that. That sort of
Yes.
man
Yes.
child trope.
Yes. It's stagnated. And there's a recklessness to the both of them, right? Like not thinking about the consequences of their actions. And that's a very teen like spirit, right?
Hmm.
Whereas for her, like perhaps she could get away with that because she's still a teen and she's still growing. But for a man to be in his 40s, right? I mean, he's either 40 or pushing 40s, and to
Hmm.
still be that way is like what the fuck. And what's also interesting, like how you said that he is a victim of the system, which he is. He's a victim of that whole Hollywood like not even it's not even Hollywood center. It's again edge of industry, right? You have the Hollywood industry, but then the porn industry is like at the outskirts, the edge of Hollywood. Like in the valley, you have all the porn mansions, where they
Hmm.
film porn. And that was his career. But it's like, oh, he's old now, he's washed up. Fuck this guy, like kick him out. And that poverty leads him to going and looking for the next prey to pimp her out, to use her as a career booster, which is what he did with his first wife, the wife that he's still married to but separated from. She was that for him, right? Like when they first started out.
Hmm. And he's sort of going back home, like the homecoming of it, and like
Mm,
his tail in between his legs,
yeah,
and all his survival skills are presenting.
yeah,
I think the first we very once he's staying with the current slash ex wife
yeah,
um, and her mom,
yeah.
and he has to basically beg like, please let me stay here,
Yes.
and they're resistant, and shortly into him staying there, his shirt comes off, and I'm like,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
he's that's part of it. Like, oh, my shirt's off.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
could you
Yeah.
possibly have a
Yeah.
bad thought? Because look at me.
Right. And he's even naked in the kitchen at one point. Like
Mm-hmm.
his mother-in-law walks in and he's butt ass naked.
Yeah, he's like, oops, uh-oh, I'm just naked.
Right.
Those are
And
his
how
resources.
yeah, yeah, and how he has to determine his or justify his stay at that house to be like, well, you need a man in the house. You need a man in the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's contingent upon the presumed weakness of these women to be like, you're weak, ladies, so you need me to be here. And how that logic is actually covering up the fact that he's a bum. And wherever he got that shiner from, kicked out from, showed up on the doorstep with nothing in his pocket and just be like, I need to stay here, but insist that he's there to protect them. He's there to mow the lawn. He's there to provide, right? It's all a lot of,
And yeah,
yeah,
creating a valid family unit because, and they are part of it too. And their generation and then the mother's generation, it's like, oh, well, we will seem more legitimate. We're
right,
here doing drugs
right.
out in the sticks.
Yeah,
And oh, now we have a man. We have an attractive man who looks good with his shirt off, who
yeah.
is now we're more legitimate.
Right. It's like this superficial validation, the superficial bona fide legitimacy. Like we have a handsome, white, straight man who is giving us the seal of approval. And that's oftentimes how white men get by in society, right? It's just their look. They look white,
Mm-hmm.
they are white, they are handsome, they can talk it up.
Yeah, they
And it's
have the
really
confidence.
they have the confidence, right? And it's a feigned confidence. It
Yeah, they
is,
have to learn that confidence. They have it will work if I do this, if
hmm
I perform this confidence as a white
exactly.
man. It
It's a
will be
performance.
purchased, it will be bought.
It will be bought. It will get eaten up. And it's so fragile. It's so fragile. It's literally it's like looking at a cracker and being like, how is this ever going to make it? It's not. It's going to crack. It's going to fall apart. The birds are going to eat it up. And what's also fascinating is like how everybody outside of him and his identity, they're all like quote unquote marginalized people, people who are marginal to our society, who are not white, male, and hetero, right? Like the weed dealer family, right? They're all black.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of them is definitely queer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they're non-gender binary, but you know, she goes by she and her. And then you have and they're women too. The women are the ones who have this power. They're the homeowners, really, the domestic managers, right?
And the men in their life are sort of lackeys.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
her sons
Mm-hmm.
are, and then the daughter has, or,
Useless. Yeah.
however they identify, has really
Yeah.
like, they have had to become independent. They have. And that's
Yeah.
why it is him coming to them doesn't necessarily fly.
Mm.
They aren't looking for a savior.
Nope. Nope.
Women of color having to become their own savior.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's like they already have like their business rolling, you know? Like they already know how to do it. They've been doing it. What was her name? Is it June? I think her name was June, the daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. June is the
Yeah.
name. And then Leandria, I guess, is the mother.
Leandria. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like Leandria and June
Judy
are the one
Hill. Judy Hill played
playing
Leandria and Brittany Rodriguez played June.
play June. Yes. And they're the ones that are like making the money, you have the cash flow, and then the brothers, like Leandria's sons, are like complaining about why did you move the hot sauce
She has to get up and go into the house to
and
locate the
find
hot
it and
sauce.
find it for him. Like so not self-sufficient for something that they want to go and get them like they could go and get themselves or something that they want, but they need a woman to go and fucking fetch it for them. and Leandria gets up and goes and gets it for her fucking son, right?
And
Um,
it's that same sort of, I don't know, compassion that welcomes Simon Rex's character and like,
mm-hmm.
okay, you're here because maybe her first line is, was it like, what are you doing here,
Yeah.
Mr. Hollywood? What brings you
Uh-huh.
back here, Mr. Hollywood?
Yeah. Yeah. To the shits.
And
Yeah.
she gives him the chance, the opportunity. Here,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
will give you this chance to take care of yourself.
Right. Right. And like it's like that again, yeah, you're right. That comes from a place of compassion. It comes from like this motherly love kind of thing. It also comes from how women were conditioned in society too, to always just
Mm-hmm.
be like, okay, boys will be boys and fine, let me try. But it's like these women already know, like they've been around all the blocks of these young fucking man boys, which is that they're always gonna fuck it up, that they're useless. that
Yeah.
male that male uselessness comes up time and time again, even when June and the brothers break in and show up and kick Simon Rex's character, kick Mikey out of that house, right? Towards the end, when they're like, get the fuck out of the house, get out of this town. If we ever see you here, we'll kill you. And June is the one that's really delivering the lines. The men are just kind of standing around, not doing jack shit, right? And then when they go back to Leandria, the mother, the matriarch, they're like, "Well, I was there for protection. I'm the muscle." And then June is like, "You didn't do jack shit. You just stood there and you let him get away, right?"
And this younger generation, she represents a younger generation who is queer.
Mm.
It's not specified how this character
Mm-hmm.
identifies.
Mm-hmm.
Presents as,
Very masked.
mask,
Very
very
masked.
mask,
Yep.
and which is to watch Mikey's character try to pour on the charm to like,
Yeah.
how do I turn June? How do I get her on my side? How do I manipulate her
Right.
into
Right.
not looking at me with that like skeptical eye? And she
Ooh, and
doesn't. She never
she is
lets.
impenetrable.
She has
Impenetrable.
boundaries.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just not his audience at all.
Not
Not
at
having it.
all.
Not
It
having it,
won't work
right?
here.
Never. It's like, what the hell are you even doing around me, in my vicinity, in my face, in my home, in my backyard? Yeah, it's like that's such a good point. And
And
then
it's
you
manipulative, but it is
yeah.
how he survives. So it's like, of course, he's trying to do
Yeah.
that because he needs to feel some sort of stability and safety
Yeah.
that comes with, she accepts me too, and she's not looking at me with this, this eye.
Exactly. And that's all he knows how to do because that's what he's done since he was like a late teen, early 20s, and that's how he got by for 2 decades. And so yeah, it's funny. It's like he needs to go and verbally insist that he has value and that he's needed among these women. But it's like the world has changed and we all see through you and you're just a washed up fella who's trying to pimp out more chicks and everybody's done with you, right? Um, let's
And
talk about the yeah,
he's lived this life which is so unconventional. Like,
yeah,
his life didn't follow the rules of family, and this is what it is.
hmm
So he's out there
hmm
breaking the rules, but then selling the idea of traditional family. Here, you can have a man in your life
yeah,
to like get in.
yeah, yeah. He's like, yeah. I mean, in a way, like you said earlier, he is like a victim to the system in a lot of ways, and it's a it's seen as a victimhood from our perspective as a third party, like looking at it from that wider sort of broad perspective of the whole system and the structure of and the way of things as a bigger thing. Like we also see how it can be disdainful, right? It's like in a way it's the comeuppance, right? Like this film is critiquing or observing the fact that straight, white, hetero maleness, cis maleness is just not going to fly anymore. You need to bring more. If you say you're a provider, you do have to provide. If you say you're a
You must
protector,
provide.
you do have to protect. If you say you are these things, you have to actually show that through action, not just your words and not just your pretty fucking face and your nice cock, right?
And that first scene where like he shows up and they're like, I'm gonna call the cops unless you get off my property, and he's so like, oh, and he runs to the sidewalk, and he's so at their he needs in that moment. He
Mm.
is in need, and he's following directions
Mm-hmm.
because that's how he has to be. And
Mm.
look, I need this, and it's like okay. Then he comes in and he inevitably becomes all the negatives, all the manipulativeness and the abuse, the ways
Yeah.
some people abuse.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a form of exploitation of like it's like, oh, okay, the system is rigged for me, for my advantage, and let me go and abuse it. And then Lonnie is an interesting character in that regard too, right? He's a straight white,
I
cis
love
man.
Lonnie.
Lonnie is so interesting, like so complicated, so complex. He's this skinny dude. Uh, he, for as far as we know, he doesn't have a job. He lives with his father. His mother had just died, and he goes to the mall pretending to be a vet, a war vet.
A veteran, yeah.
Yeah, to get sympathy, to get donations, whatever it is. But then turns out he was not. He did not serve.
That
Mm.
is so interesting because, like, I don't know, perhaps his maleness does he feels emasculated, or he doesn't feel like this successful man,
Mm,
and he has to
the rugged
create
man.
that for himself. Yes,
Yeah,
the rugged man, and
yeah,
he's probably never been seen as like, oh, you're just Lonnie or something. Which is
right.
why he's so susceptible to Mikey being like, hey, let's be buddies, drive me
Uh-huh.
around, let's be friends. He's
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
in need of a connection like that.
Yeah, yeah. In need of a friend. Yeah. And 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 yeah, like Lonnie's lack of self-worth and self-value and his need to pretend to be something that he's not is quite similar to Mikey too, to Simon Rex's character. Um the scene when or not the scene, but the whole like the part of the film when Mikey goes like, "Oh, we have to get off this exit." And then Lonnie makes that sharp turn, leads to this humongous pileup accident. And
Yeah.
they're both like freaking out and shaking. And then Simon, again, he uses his words against Lonnie, right? The only thing that he has. And he says, "You were the one that was driving. You were the one that was behind the wheel. That was your choice to do that, right?" Boom, 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 boom. Yeah.
Yeah, my first on the agenda, shift blame.
Yeah.
Uh, refuse any accountability
Yeah.
that is so important to him in that moment,
Yeah.
to really believe it himself.
Mm-hmm.
I was not here. Here's what's important to me right now.
Yeah.
Not considering you, not considering my act. Like it is, which again, survival,
All survival.
um, all survival, and this sort of like, oh no, I'm in this place again. We repeat that. I'm sad and desperate little baby,
Yeah.
and then later when he sort of gets away with it or something when he sees it on the news, and he goes to the backyard and he's like, yes, yes, yes. He then, as soon as he acquires that safety, that perceived safety, he goes right back to
Mm-hmm.
this
His
old
old
way.
ways.
It's
His old
so
fucking
he
ways.
can't resist.
And then, and it's him not taking responsibility for something that he fucked up on, which is what he's been always doing, always getting away with. But who sees him do that? Lonnie's father in the backyard
Mm-hmm.
sees him doing that dance. And Lonnie's father knows it all, right? Knows exactly
In
what
that moment,
happened,
yeah.
knows everything. And he's not even going to do shit about it. He's just going to sit there, look at him with that look of judgment and disdain, right? And that's it. That's all he's going to do. And that's enough to be that big of a man, to be like, that's enough, you know? That's plenty. I gave him the look. He knows it. I know it. I don't need to do jack shit. I don't need to react to this. That is like, I don't know. That's equanimity in some way, you know?
Yeah, and and he even knows that he all the denial that he has to
Mm.
participate in.
Hmm.
It's gosh, how exhausting.
Yeah, it is exhausting. It's similar actually to the way he has to hustle weed, in order to get by. Like you have to sell these tiny little joints and you have to roll them and you have to sell them to school kids and it's like you make little money like this, little money like that. It's like desperation, but and it's a lot of little tiny petty tedious work, but then, it's like that's the only thing he has, so he does it, right?
He's really good at that though. It's like in that moment he's like, "Great, I got this. I got to get my special papers, and then I go do this, and I give some weed, and like he really knows how to
Yeah.
navigate that.
Yeah, he
And
does. Yeah.
what he really could have done that in an ethical way without fucking over Leandria.
Yeah.
Like
Who said don't
he really
sell
could
to the
have,
workers? Yeah.
yeah.
She said don't mess with
And
big oil, don't do that. But that's exactly what he does, right? Yeah. Exploitation. Hmm.
the American flag rolling papers.
Yeah. Oh my God. And like I loved what you said at the opening of the film when NSYNC's Bye 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 was playing and you were like,
Yes.
the nerve of the filmmaker to have chosen this song as the opening song. And I'm like, that is such a good way to put it. The nerve, indeed, the
The
nerve. It's
nerve.
the nerve. It's amazing. It's like profoundly camp and beautiful, And
So beautiful.
all of NSYNC, all those Backstreet Boys, all these remember like O Town, like all those fucking
O-Town, yeah.
all those guys, all those fucking dudes,
Was
they're all
O-Town the
washed up.
Making the Band?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh my God. Gotta
Yeah.
find that on
Where are
YouTube.
they? But it's like they had a moment in a certain era and now they're like who are they? They've dissolved. Whatever they were has dissolved. It's gone. It's a memory. It's a nostalgia. That's all they are. They don't have
And
any emotion.
those guys were also products of like some man going,
Mm.
I'm gonna put together
Oh,
these sexy boys.
yes.
I gotta find some sexy boys and I'm gonna put
Have
them
young
together. I'm gonna
girls
make some
slobber
money.
over them. Yep, 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 yep. Oh yeah. That's
And that opening scene, I we don't really know what he's coming from. Like we know what he's coming from, but like he's on this bus.
yeah.
We don't know what transpired right before.
Hmm.
What huge monumental fuck up or trouble did he get into that now he's like, oh shit, I have nothing. I got to
Does
get on a bus and
doesn't
go
even matter,
back.
right? Yeah, it's
It
like the
doesn't matter
same
because
thing.
we
Doesn't
know.
matter. We know. We just know, we see the cycle of his life very clearly. It's like, oh, this is what he does. Of course, he got kicked out of the last place. Somebody punched him out. It's probably another
Mm-hmm.
woman, It's probably the same old shit. And when he comes into his wife and his mother-in-law's house, he doesn't take any responsibility. He's blaming others, right? He's like, it was their
Mm-hmm.
fault, like they fucked up, they did this, they did that. He's the victim. He doesn't say anything like where he and the women know. They're like, we know what you're about. We know what
Yeah.
you did something wrong, right? Oh fuck. I loved all the actresses in this movie. Susanna Son, who plays that little girl Rayleigh
Oh my
Strawberry.
God.
What the
Yes.
hell? That chick. What's her story?
Fantastic.
What's
Oh, I've
what's
been
she
following her on
about?
Instagram. Oh, well,
Oh my
she seems
god.
super cool.
Yeah.
And
She's got this
and
Lolita-esque-ness to her. She's
yeah,
basically a Lolita
and
in this film. Yeah.
when she sings, when she's like, I'm a singer, and she goes and she sings a little
Hmm.
bit, it's because by now we already
Yeah.
see him trying to get his grips into her.
Yeah.
Um,
The
and
talents are in. Yeah.
while it's genuine that there is like he sees this like he's genuinely like, you're beautiful, I love you, oh my
Yeah.
god. but he's also
Right.
like, and you're my ticket, and I'm going to use
Right.
you.
Yeah, he
Um,
lies to her completely and doesn't
mhm.
expose the fact that she's his ticket. Yeah.
He has to be in complete odds with the truth because that's how
Oh.
he gets by.
Mm, mm,
But to know that he's like about to sink his claws into her, and then you see this like this beautiful voice come out of her, and you're
oh.
like, oh my god,
Yeah.
that's who she is, and like she's got
Yeah.
so much,
That
and
pureness. Yeah.
that pureness, working at a
Yeah.
donut shop.
Yeah. And she is an aspiring musician and singer. And she's not that confident about it. But we hear her sing and she is like amazing, right? Uh
So amazing. And she this okay, because then we go to her house, and it's this perfect little pink little doll house,
yeah, it's a
and
dream house. Yeah. Yeah.
my mom's there,
Barbie's
and
dream house.
the mom's not
Hmm.
there, and then because
Yeah,
she's
we
not
never
there at
see
the
the
moment, but then
mother.
the father's
Right.
not there at all. The father's
At all.
gone.
Not even
So
mentioned.
then you know,
Yeah.
like that's why she's falling for
Vulnerable
this
to
because
that.
she's
Yeah.
seeking
Yeah.
this male attention,
Yeah.
this acceptance,
Uh-huh.
this love, this adoration,
Right?
and but she's also keen to it. She's
Yeah.
like when she sort of reveals like what was it? What's it? Mikey Saber, when she's like Mr. Saber, and she sort of reveals, "I know you do porn, and I'm still
Right.
here." And she reveals that right as the roller coaster drops.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's such an amazing moment.
Yeah.
Um,
And his face of shock.
Amazing cinematic moment. I couldn't even
So
believe
good. So good. Yeah.
it was like an
Perfect moment.
all-you-can-eat buffet.
Oh yeah, that's such a good point. Yeah, and in that moment too, when she says like, "Yeah, I know you have this thing, this past, and this is actually who you actually are. You're not this Hollywood producer star that you said you were, but I still accept you and I love you," right? And it's that
Mm-hmm.
womanly compassion, the female sort of I'll envelop you and wrap my arms around you no matter what, that kind of thing. And he can't do that for himself, not in the least, because he's a fucking liar and he doesn't see, yeah, it's actually really tragic. Like he doesn't see like what he is maybe to the core of his essence, you know? Like he does have a beautiful body. He does have this charm, you know, and he could probably have
Amazing charm.
amazing charm and he could have probably applied it in something more productive that's less exploitative and not going to pimp out young girls. He could have probably done it in like, I don't know, something one step higher like car salesman, you know, like just
Something
what?
where, because he knows how to make people feel good, he's spent his whole life trying to figure out, I got to give people what they want so I can get what
Yeah.
I want. So he
Yeah.
does have that perspective.
Yeah.
He does know what to say to make someone feel better. He does know what to say to, you know, he's made his whole life out of giving people what he thinks they want, what he knows they want.
Yeah.
And he could use that for positive things,
For
you know?
sales, you know, that's how salespeople make their money. He could have applied that to sales, like right there. But, you know, even the fact that like when he shows up at that house, he doesn't say, I'm gonna go and get a job at like, oh wait, he does
Mm-hmm.
try though. He did try. We saw that. We saw the montage where he's trying to get a job,
Oh, I love that was
right?
such a great
Right?
moment, the
Yeah.
montage of job interviews.
Yeah.
Because yeah, and none of these jobs are like amazing. So it's like, oh, he's trying to get some
Fast
whatever
food.
job.
Yeah, fast food, kitchen, like administration, something really basic, start like entry level. And they're all like, "Oh, you did porn, so fuck off." So he's just
And so
deleted.
vulnerable of his character in that moment, especially when he's like, I did porn.
Right. Right.
To just be lay it all out there.
Yeah.
This is who I am, which is such a great
Yeah.
moment of sort of like this radical acceptance of himself
Yeah.
to say, here's who I am.
Yeah.
For a
And
job
plays
that isn't even so he starts so how can we blame him when
yeah.
no one's even going to embrace
Yeah.
him and the way
Yeah.
he's had to navigate life. It's
Yeah.
never occurred to him that he can just be honest, you
Uh-huh.
know?
Uh-huh.
This, and I felt this in my life too. Like, I can't do it the right way because it'll never
Mm.
work. I have to
Hmm.
figure out some backdoor way
Hmm.
because it doesn't work out when you do it the right way.
Hmm.
And so he's always having to like find the back door, find that manipulative way, and like instead of just being accepted for who he is.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, I would have, if I were in the position, I'd be like, you did porn and now you're here and you tell me, great, you're hired.
Exactly. Exactly. So it kind of goes both ways. It's like if we want somebody to embrace their authentic selves and love themselves for it, then we also, as a society, as the individual who is part of that society, we need to have that open-mindedness, compassion, understanding, the bigger perspective, the humanity, and the love to say, if you accept yourself for that, I accept you too, and I'm down with that. I'm down with that truth and you being
I'm
authentic
down
and
with
true to
that.
yourself. Yeah.
And I will not deter or obstruct your path
Yeah.
with like, you did bad. You're wrong.
Exactly. None of that moralizing, none of that judgment, none of that chastising or punishment, Everybody deserves an opportunity and a chance. And one way to do that is simply to say, okay, yes, that's okay. And that's what Strawberry, that Rayleigh chick, does with
Mm-hmm.
him in that roller
She accepts
coaster.
him fully and
Yeah.
totally,
Yeah.
whether it's to her detriment or not.
Right.
Because the young characters, June and Strawberry,
Yeah.
they seem so kind of confident and
Uh-huh.
comfortable.
Uh-huh.
Ideally, I like to think that Strawberry does not like fall victim to his
Mm.
bullshit,
Right.
because I think he's receptive to it, to someone being like, because he thinks he's bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's not working with it outwardly, but like he has been told he's bad because he does porn.
Mm-hmm.
He's bad because this, that, or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So to be fully accepted is something so valuable to him.
Mm-hmm.
This girl didn't say this about him. This girl didn't reject him.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that ending is very, it's like very ambiguous, right? It's like the ending of Interstellar. Like we just, don't, I mean, not Interstellar, was it Inception? Like we just don't know, like, what, what was his decision? Like standing in front of this house, looking in, like, what's he gonna do? Is he gonna knock on the door? Is he gonna take her? Or is he just gonna walk away and figure out something else, And if he does, what would he even do? Have you seen that film, Knights of Cabiria by
Mm-mm.
Fellini? Oh my God, please check it out. Like, I mean, you're into clowning and stuff, so Giulietta Mazzina is somebody definitely worth studying. Like everybody, says Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, but like Giulietta Mazzina gets overlooked so much, and she made Fellini's career. There's this beautiful film about a prostitute. She's a streetwalker, and oh my God, actually, oh my God, now that I'm talking about it, Knights of Cabiria and this movie are like the same. They're just,
Ooh.
yeah. The opening sequence is Giulietta Mazzina's character, well, Cabiria, her name's Cabiria. She's walking by a river with this man, like they're in love. They're holding each other and they're kissing. And then the man shoves her in the river to drown, takes her purse, and runs away. She comes out of the river, like the town people rescue her from the river. These boys rescue her from the river, and then they give her, a CPR as she comes back to life, and then she's looking for the man. She's like, "Where is he? Where's my boyfriend? Where's my boyfriend?" And then they're like, "He's gone," and she's like, "No, he can't be gone. He can't be gone." So in denial. She goes to her little house, and all this shit happens. She meets like a big time filmmaker. The filmmaker actually has a fiance, and so she's just kind of there as like this, being used up for the good time of the evening, just to give him a little bit of affection for the night. All this shit happens, and then she eventually meets a man who says he's like an accountant, and he's like, "Oh, my name is this, and I felt this real strong connection to you. I think I'm in love with you. I want to marry you." And she's like, you don't know my background. Like, she doesn't say that she's a streetwalker, but she's so ashamed of it. She's like, you don't know who I am. Like, how could you say you love me? He's like, I feel a cosmic connection to you. I feel like I'm in love with you. And she's like, fine. He's like, please marry me. And she's like, fine. So she gets over the self shame and says, I believe in love now. This is happening to me. She sells her little house, the only thing that she has. She sells it, gets all the money, and then she and the man meet at this cafe. And she's like, oh, like, this is my dowry, like, into my marriage with you. I'm so excited. They start walking in the woods to go, the woods to see a sunset. She's at a cliff with him, and his look does not look good. And she's like, what's wrong? And she's like, oh, you're here to kill me. Oh, you want to kill me? Go ahead and kill me. Oh, wow, you're gonna, my house is, kill me. And she's like, take my money, take everything, kill me now. And he just takes the money and runs away in shame. That's the ending of the film. The ending of the
Wow.
film, well, actual ending of the film is she walks out of the woods, she's crying, and there's a parade happening. All these clowns, and like there's a wedding or something, like people are dancing and dressed up, and they're like, walking and dancing, and there's like a parade, and she's like walking through the parade with tears running down her face, smiling. And that's the ending of the film. And I was reading some interview with Fellini, and Fellini says, somebody asked him, like, what happened to Cabiria after that moment, after that ending of the scene? And Fellini says, I don't know, but I still worry about her. I know. And it's like, that's the same feeling I have for Mikey Saber in this
Hmm.
movie, which is that he's Cabiria. It's the same. It's like, we don't know what he's going to be doing. I mean, he's flat broke, and he's completely been exposed. Like, he can't come back to this home anymore. Home is
Yeah.
gone. Everybody
And
is.
and
Everybody's
he's the
left him.
manipulator, he's the abuser, yet he's the one who's like,
He's
I'm
the
worried about
one.
him.
Yeah. Yeah. But, as an audience, like, because he's the protagonist, we do have feels for him. We do worry about him. I do worry about him the way that I worried about Cabiria, the way Fellini worried about Cabiria. Man, you got to see that movie. It's such a beautiful film.
I want to
Oh
see
my
it.
God, it's so good. And yeah, and the donut shop lady again is like Miss Fan, right? She's the same donut shop lady from Donut Time in
In
Tangerine.
Tangerine, I love
Yeah,
that. And I
she's
loved
ah
her presence and her relationship with with Strawberry. She's like,
yeah,
I bet they never fight. I'm sure they're always getting along.
right.
And
Very few words
e-
exchanged.
even with Mikey there, she's
Yeah,
just like, okay, okay.
kind of rolls her eyes, but
Which again, a woman of color going,
mm,
okay, well,
okay,
I'm not going to be like, um, I don't know, you're bad or get out of here.
right.
There's an openness to
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
and
And boundaries,
yeah, and like you
like
can't do this, you can't do that, and
yeah,
slowly he erodes the boundaries.
yeah. He's starting to
Um,
stand behind the donut counter.
hmm.
She like I meant her boundaries as like a boss. She's not Rayleigh's mother. She's not Rayleigh's guardian. So she's not going to say I would watch out for him if I were. She
Hmm.
doesn't do any of that.
No, she will not.
She just says no free donuts. But that's still a very pregnant statement.
Yeah,
And then
no
she
free
leaves it at that.
donuts.
Leaves it at that. That's a badass bitch.
Well, I remember mentioning that like all these surrounding characters um, demonstrated and would be so there for Mikey.
Yeah.
They would take him in and support him, and he thinks all these people are against him
Yeah.
when really they have all embraced him
Yes.
despite what has transpired.
Exactly. Or maybe not even despite. They just do. Because
Hmm.
that is what actual unconditional love is. They just love him. They do like him. They're down with him. The neighbor Lonnie, he's like, man, like, you're great. Like, yeah, I'll give you a ride, no problem, like
Yeah.
all of that. Yeah, okay, fine, I'll give you a chance. Why not? It's like
How
they
could this
have
turn out bad, me giving you rides?
what could possibly go wrong, you know? What do you mean I'm going to end up in jail? No, it's like they just all of them have faith in humanity. All those other characters have faith in humanity, I feel like. And that's why they accept somebody like Mikey and they say fine. They say okay. You know? Because it's like, all right, he's a fucking troublemaker. All right, he's a fuck up, but still, he's a human person and we love him, you know? And that's why they keep saying okay, okay, okay. So yeah, there's love at the core of it, but there's no self-love for himself. You know, that's why he
None.
always feels this desperation to do stuff, to fuck shit up, to make things happen. It just never had to be that way. Poor Mikey.
Yeah, because he such a great representation of the idea of community,
Mm.
which like I don't. I was thinking about this. I'm like, have I ever felt this rich sense of community?
Mm.
And I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I here and there, and as I get older, I do. But there was a community of people who took him in, and he came from there.
Yeah.
So, so in a way, he really quite easily got back to being a part of this community,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he messed it up all for himself.
Big time, big time. So the moral of the story is you gotta love and accept yourself if you want the love and acceptance of your community and your family and your friends. Yeah, it's got to start with you first. It doesn't come from the outside in ever. It's the other
You
way
really
around.
have to,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
if your worth is the acceptance you get from someone, then you are just mining and
Mm.
manipulating to get that thing,
And it's never
and
gonna end.
it's empty.
It's empty. Yeah, you're just a void that is just sucking in and exploiting and destroying lives and whatever. It's rampage.
A beautiful void with
Yeah.
a very hung void.
Very hung boy. That scene when he's running with his junk
When
and
he's running,
the
so
the
liberating.
so amazing. It's like a beautiful scene. And then when the camera just kind of shifts down like just for a
Mm-hmm.
second down to his junk and back up. I'm like, this movie is so good. It's so funny on
So
so
good.
many levels. I fucking standing ovation, eternal applause for Red Rocket. And again, I did not hear a single thing about this movie at all. It was so off my radar. It's crazy. I'm so happy that we saw it together. It's amazing.
Yes.
Amazing. Okay, before we go, I always do this at the end of all my podcast episodes. I ask a series of flashcard questions based on a specific K drama, and then you just answer them. Like, think of it as improv. You just answer
Okay.
them as you would if you were that character in that circumstance. Okay?
Okay.
So the show that I'm going to talk about today is called Our Beloved Summer. It's currently on Netflix. Um, let's say that you're a famous and successful illustrator named Chae-ung. You used to date a woman named Yeon-soo for several years since you were both in high school. Back in high school, the two of you were the subject of a TV documentary series, but in college, she dumped you and she never gave you an explanation. And now, 10 years later, the documentarians want to film the two of you again as a revamp, like a reboot of the special. And you need to re encounter her, even though you haven't seen her in a long time. What do you do?
Mm. Depends on the dynamic. Like, I would probably refuse if it was like something she wanted,
Hmm.
or I would use it as a showcase to be like, she did this, she dropped me.
Yeah.
Depends on where I was at. I would love the answer to be like, I would just not pursue it at all. I've moved on.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then, I don't know, the potential for clarity
Hmm.
would be a part of it. Like, I would struggle, but to drop my ego and go, I'm very interested in doing this for clarity and understanding and maybe perhaps
Hmm.
reconnection.
To process it. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to give it closure, hopefully. Okay. I like that. Okay, let's say you're Yunsu, the ex-girlfriend, the girlfriend. You're a woman in her late 20s. You're an executive at a PR company, and you and your ex-boyfriend both agreed to do this documentary again, even though in reality you feel kind of weird about seeing him face to face, because you feel some guilt over having dumped him out of the blue. One day, you hear that your ex-boyfriend suffers from extreme insomnia, so you make him some jujube tea, which is like a Korean tea. It's good for sleep. And you bring it to his house. And when he opens the door, he asks you, "Do you want to sleep over?" What do you do?
Um, I mean, yeah, probably. I mean, isn't that why I brought the tea, really?
Oh, good point. Good point. It's late in
Perhaps
the
there
night,
is like
you know?
some, because she's in PR, there's perhaps some
Mm,
acknowledgement of I dropped this person.
mm,
Oh, my
oopsie.
PR of myself is look how
Mm,
helpful I am. I'm bringing you this tea.
right. Calculation. Okay, shit. All right. All right. All right. Let's say you're the same chick, Yunsu, okay? There's a really famous K-pop star idol named NJ. And you notice that NJ is always around your ex-boyfriend. She's really attractive, very rich, world renowned, and she's always around your ex. What do you do?
Hmm. I don't know. Ask about her.
Tune?
Um, yeah, I'd ask about her. And is there maybe there's some like potential to utilize that
Hmm.
for her to her advantage?
Yeah.
Again,
Okay.
this person's in PR. My
Right.
perspective of people in PR is like not good.
Yeah. 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 Okay.
They're
Well,
conniving.
they are, and they're in the business for business. Yeah. Okay, let's be more specific then. Let's say you're Yunsu. You see your ex-boyfriend at this live art exhibition that you were in part like producing, okay? And you see him illustrating, very focused on his drawings in front of this crowd, and he looks kind of hot. Like he's really good at what he does, okay? You kind of feel this attraction for him again. And then you see that K-pop star NJ show up and hand him a huge bouquet of flowers in front of everybody and makes a scene. What do you do?
Oh, I feel like a real idiot. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, I'd feel like a really real idiot.
Just feel like a dummy. Be like, oh
Yeah,
shit, I
like
fucked up.
that sense of like, and whether it's valid or not valid, we always look at someone like, I gave up
Yeah,
on that, and now they're
yeah,
doing what they always said they were going to do. You
yeah,
know?
yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. What there isn't much you could do after you see something like that, but talk to your subconscious about it. Okay. Let's say you're the director of this docu-series. Okay. Your name's Ji-ung. You're a different guy. You're also Che-ung, that illustrator guy's best friend. All right. You were best friends
Oh,
since high school. But the whole time you had a crush on his girlfriend Yunsu. Since you were all kids in high school, y'all went to the same school. But since since they broke up, you were still always attracted to this chick. Okay, one day you had your hopes up to maybe ask her out, but then you hear that they're back together again. What do you do?
I don't know. I'd probably try to make a play, some kind of messy male, kind of like look at me, bang my chest.
Mm,
Especially if this is the person producing this reunion.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably handle it poorly.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's say you're the same guy. You're the same producer guy, the director guy. Your name is Ji-ung. Your mother, who used to persistently abandon you when you were a child, like she would just like leave you alone at the house for like days, weeks, months, years at a time, and just like show up whenever she like feels like it. You had to really be self-sufficient since you were very, very young. And so you have this resentment. One day she just shows up again, is in your house, hanging out, cooking you meals, playing the mother role, and you're so like confused and angry about what she's doing. And then she leaves again, and then she shows up once more and says to you, I want you to film me. And you're like, why? Why would I do that? And she says, because I'm dying. What do you do?
Hmm. Um, well, filming her would, you know, I feel like inevitably create this like it would break down this resentment, and we hold on to our resentments. We like this is who I am.
Right.
Um, so there's a big risk in doing this. Um, Gosh, I don't know what I would do. I would hope I would say yes
Hmm.
and um, give my mother, what she couldn't give me
Mm-hmm.
in just being there,
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
um, which would be a great thing for her if she is dying.
Right. Okay. Try
And
to
when
be a good parent.
we
Yeah.
when we learn we're dying, or when we fear that, you
Yeah.
know, I forget what the chemical is. There's a it's abundant in us when we are born and right before we die.
Oh.
And it's sort of like this thing that like is it pitocin, something like that.
Okay.
It's that thing that sort of makes every trivial thing go away,
Uh.
and you get clarity on importance. And
Huh.
so that mother may be faced with like the clarity of importance, and perhaps this is her way of connecting through what he does.
Yeah. Right. It's a form of acknowledgement, recognition. To be like, you're good at what you do, and I trust that you'll do the same with me. Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. Final question. Let's say you're Cheung, the illustrator guy, okay? Your best friend, Cheung, shows up at your doorstep drunk and he confesses that he's been in love with Yeonsu since high school. What do you do?
Just repeat that one.
You're the illustrator guy.
Yes.
You're Cheung, the illustrator guy. Your best friend since high school, Cheung, he
Mm-hmm.
shows up drunk to your house and confesses that he's been in love with Yeonsu this whole time since high school. What do you do?
Um, I'd embrace that. I'd say go for it. Um,
Really?
because if he's
Well, you guys are
just
back together now. You and Yeonsu are back together
oh,
now.
when we're back together. Okay,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
get
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know why I left the K-pop star who brings me flowers in public squares.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I don't know. What would if he's telling me this?
He's your
He's
best
admitting this
friend.
thing. He's
He's
upset.
drunk. Yeah. And he's like, I've been in
Um,
love with your girlfriend this whole time since high school. And just passes out. And he's in your house.
I'm not sure what I would do. Like, uh, I might encourage him to tell her
Huh.
um,
Yeah.
at this point.
Right.
Um, if am I in love with her? Are we back together? Um, but if he's, I don't know. I try to be logical, I guess. I don't know if I would see it as a threat because I've had her. Then I had her again, and then I had this K-pop star, and then my best friend's like crying, and his mom's about to die. So it's like, well, I don't know. Shoot your shot. Maybe she can date us both.
Yeah. It's like, all right, I'll share since your mom's dying. I'll share my girlfriend. Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.